Have you ever felt like you were on the outside looking in, like you were desperate for help, but didn't feel worthy or welcome to ask for it? Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful and, honestly, challenging stories in the Gospels. The encounter between Jesus and a Syrophoenician. This isn't just an ancient tale. It's a story that speaks directly to our own experiences of faith, persistence, and what it means to be included. Who was this woman, and what can her incredible story teach us today? Stick around, because this one is a game. First, let's set the scene. Jesus and his disciples are in the region of Tyre and Sidon. This is important. This area, known as Phoenicia, was Gentile territory. It wasn't part of the Jewish homeland. So, Jesus, a Jewish teacher, is essentially traveling abroad. The people here weren't part of the covenant people of Israel. They had different customs, different beliefs, and were generally seen as outsiders by the Jewish community. Into this scene steps our protagonist. The Gospel of Mark calls her a Syrophoenician woman, and Matthew calls her a Canaanite woman. These terms aren't contradictory. They just give us different layers of her identity. Syrophoenician tells us her geographical and cultural background. She was from the Phoenician part of the Roman province of Syria. Canaanite is a more ancient term, linking her back to the historic enemies of Israel. The Canaanites were the people who lived in the land before the Israelites arrived. So, in every sense of the word, she was an outsider. A Gentile, a foreigner, someone who, by all cultural and religious standards of the day, shouldn't have been interacting with Jesus. But she had a problem, a desperate, heart-wrenching problem. Her daughter was severely tormented by a demon. Imagine the pain and helplessness of watching your child suffer like that. This mother's love drove her to do something bold, something audacious. She heard that Jesus, the miracle worker from Galilee, was nearby. Ignoring all the social boundaries, she came to him. She falls at his feet, pleading, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly." Notice her words, "So calls him Lord and Son of David." This is significant. Son of David was a messianic title. This Gentile woman, an outsider, recognized something about Jesus that many of his own people were still struggling to see. She saw him as the promised king, the one with the power to save. Now, this is where the story takes a turn that can make us feel a little uncomfortable. Jesus' initial reaction is ... silence. He doesn't say a word. The disciples, annoyed by her persistent shouting, ask Jesus to send her away. They just see her as a nuisance. Then, Jesus finally speaks, but his words aren't what we'd expect. He says, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." Essentially, he's saying his primary mission is to his own people. This sounds exclusive, almost dismissive. But the woman is not deterred. She comes closer, kneels before him, and says simply, "Lord, help me." Her desperation has stripped away all pride. This is when Jesus delivers the most shocking line in the story. He says, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." Whoa. Did Jesus just call her a dog? This is a tough verse to read. In that culture, dogs was a common and derogatory term used by some Jews to refer to Gentiles. It was a harsh insult. It feels like a door being slammed shut in her face. At this point, most people would have given up. They would have walked away, hurt, angry, defeated. But not this woman. Her faith and her love for her daughter gave her an incredible wit and a profound humility. She comes back with one of the most brilliant and faith-filled responses in the entire Bible. She says, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Let's just pause and absorb the genius of that reply. She doesn't argue. She doesn't get offended. She accepts his analogy, but turns it completely on its head. She essentially says, "I agree. You're right. The children of Israel get the main meal, but I'm not asking for a seat at the table. I'm not asking for the whole loaf. All I need is a crumb, and I believe that even a crumb of your power is more than enough to heal my daughter." She sees the overflowing abundance available in Jesus. She understands that his grace isn't a limited resource that runs out. There's enough for the children at the table, and there's still more than enough that falls to the floor. Her faith wasn't in her own worthiness. It was in his overwhelming sufficiency. Jesus' reaction is one of pure amazement. He's moved by her response. He says to her, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." And the Bible tells us that her daughter was healed at that very moment. So, what are we to make of this challenging encounter? Was Jesus being intentionally harsh? Scholars have debated this for centuries. Some suggest Jesus was testing her faith, intentionally putting up barriers to see if she would persist. He wasn't trying to be cruel, but to draw out the depth of her belief for all to see, including his own disciples. By making the initial exclusion so explicit, he makes the final inclusion that much more powerful. Others suggest Jesus was reflecting the common prejudice of the time to challenge it. He was essentially playing a role, voicing the exclusive attitude of his disciples in society so he could then publicly dismantle it with his actions. He was teaching his followers a crucial lesson. The good news of the kingdom is not just for one group of people. It's for everyone who comes to him in faith, regardless of their background, their ethnicity, or their social standing. This story is a pivotal moment in the Gospels. It's a foreshadowing of the mission to the Gentiles that would become a central theme of the early church. Jesus breaks down a wall of hostility right then and there. He shows that the kingdom of God is bigger and more inclusive than anyone had imagined. What does this Syrophoenician woman teach us today? First, she teaches us about the power of persistent prayer. She refused to take no for an answer. When faced with silence, she kept shouting. When faced with exclusion, she knelt closer. When faced with a seemingly insurmountable obstacle, she found a way through with humility and wit. She reminds us not to give up when our prayers aren't answered immediately. Keep asking, keep seeking, keep knocking. Second, she teaches us about the nature of faith. Her faith wasn't about being perfect or having the right religious resume. She was an outsider in every way. Her faith was simply a desperate, tenacious trust in the person of Jesus. She believed he had the power and, deep down, the goodness to help her. It's a reminder that we don't come to God based on our own merit, but based on his grace. This woman, this Canaanite outsider, becomes a hero of the faith, a model for the disciples and for us.